Everyone I've been speaking with for days now, and some of her friends from high school and college that I spoke with tonight told me she lit up every room that she walked into.
I'm glad I got to know her for who she was.
To many, Ashley was known as a volleyball coach, a mother, and a teacher. And to her college friends, she was also known as the best baker in the house.
That was one of her favorite things to do, was to bake cookies.
And to her high school youth group friends, she was the one who always made you feel like you belonged.
I just noticed growing up that she was kind to everyone, and she made everybody feel welcome that was in the room with her. And she was never unkind to anybody. I've never witnessed her being unkind. She was just always so excited about life and just wanted to share that excitement with everyone.
Brenda Borders grew up with Ashley. Together, they went to Bible studies and traveled to Nicaragua and El Salvador together on mission trips.
And that's just when we bonded with her and her sister and her parents, and it was just a time of my life that truly just shaped me of who I am today. She was just so kind and loving to others, and it just really taught me a lot about life. And I've always looked up to her and her family during those years in my life.
That kindness didn't change in college.
Everybody would flock to Ashley because of who she was as a person, and and when she came around, everybody knew, hey, you know what? She's got that light that shines because of God's inside of her.
And those in the community noticed that light too.
Time and time again, you just hear about how much she loved Jesus and how much she loved people and how she made you feel just important and noticed. And just time and time again, people are like, she was just the best of our community. I even heard somebody the other day saying, if more people lived like Ashley, this community and this world would be a better place.
This loss has left many in Tipp City hurting, but they're clinging on to hope and faith to get through these hard times.
It's tough to talk about because it just is mind-blowing that she's no longer with us. And for her daughters, if I had to say anything, is keep God center of your life and know that your mom always loved you.
This community is known for rallying around people, and I think this is a time where we're ready to step up, and the Smith family has loved on us, and so it's our turn to give that same love back.
For those wanting to support Ashley's daughters, there are several ongoing fundraisers, and there are several more that are coming up over the weekend. In the studio, Kirsten Reedford, 2 News.
A small town, a quiet street, a family that looked, by every measure, like the kind you would want living next door, that he stood on stage every Sunday morning, microphone in hand, eyes closed, singing about love, about faithfulness, about God. And 3 days after his pregnant wife was found dead in their bedroom, the FBI had seen enough. The story he told the town, the break-in, the unknown attacker, the grieving husband, it was never real. What was real? Ashley Flynn, 37 years old, a teacher, a coach, a mother, pregnant with her 3rd child. And what investigators uncovered in the days that followed would leave an entire community asking one question they never thought they would have to ask about a man they trusted completely. How do you miss evil when it is standing right in front of you, leading worship, smiling at your face every single Sunday? Tipp City, Ohio, a small town sitting just north of Dayton, the kind of place where neighbors know each other by first name, where people wave from their driveways, where violent crime is something that happens in bigger cities, in harder places. Not here, not on these streets. Tipp City has roughly 7,000 residents, a tight community built on faith, on local schools, and on the kind of trust that takes generations to build. On Cunningham Court, a quiet cul-de-sac on the east side of town, families had lived side by side for years. It was exactly the kind of street where you felt safe. That changed on February 16, 2026, just after 2:30 in the morning. A 911 call came in from a home on that street. The caller could barely form a sentence. A man, voice cracking, saying someone had broken into his house, that his wife had been hurt, that he needed help right now. Officers from the Tipp City Police Department responded within minutes. What they found inside that home was not a burglary interrupted. Ashley Flynn, 37 years old, was gone. She was a substitute teacher in the community where she grew up, a 7th grade volleyball coach, a church volunteer, a mother of 2 young daughters. And at the time of her passing, she was expecting her 3rd child. People who knew Ashley described her the same way every single time, no matter who you asked. She was present. She was consistent. She made people feel like they mattered simply by being in the room. Her family called her a light. And on February 16th, that light was taken. By morning, Tipp City was in mourning. And at the center of that grief, visible and present, was the man who had made that 9/11 call. His name was Caleb Flynn. And for 3 days,
how's
the
it going,
entire
church?
town
Pastor
stood
Caleb here.
behind him.
Hope you're having
They
a
were wrong.
fantastic week. Wanted to take a moment just to remind you that this weekend is the finale of our At the Movies series. We've had an incredible 2 weeks, but we have saved the best for last. And so I want to encourage you, invite your friends, invite your family. We've got a seat saved just for you. And so again, join us for the finale this weekend of our At the Movies series. And then also this weekend, you can bring in your backpacks for our backpack drive. We've got these packing lists that you can pick up at the welcome desk. And so let's fill that crate full of backpacks with those supplies for some kids and families who may not be able to get those supplies before school starts. And so you can bring in those backpacks starting this Sunday. And of course, never miss any Sunday, but definitely not in August. We've got some exciting things coming up that we're going to be announcing here soon. But church, we love you guys, and we'll see you this Sunday at 10 a.m.
It is 2:30 in the morning. Cunningham Court is completely dark and still. And then a phone rings at the Miami County 911 Dispatch Center. The caller is Caleb Flynn. His voice is unsteady. He gives the address and says someone has broken into his home, that his wife has been hurt, that he needs help immediately. The dispatcher stays on the line and begins asking questions. And right there, in those first few minutes, something stands out. Caleb describes what happened to Ashley with a level of specific detail that gives any careful listener reason to pause. He does not say he found her and something seemed wrong. He tells the dispatcher, with immediate clarity, that his wife had been harmed, that it involved 2 separate incidents, and that both had affected her head. 2. And to the head, he knew the number. He knew the location. Without any hesitation at all, a man who claims he woke up to find an intruder had already been in his home and hurt his wife, and yet he can account for precisely what happened to her within the first moments of the call. The dispatcher asks about the children. Are they safe? Where are they? Caleb says the daughters are in their room, still asleep. The dispatcher has to prompt him more than once to go and physically check on them. For a father believing an armed intruder had just been inside his home, the instinct to run to his children should have been immediate, automatic. But Caleb did not move toward them until he was told to. Twice. He eventually goes. He comes back and says they are still sleeping, completely undisturbed, even though, according to his account, an armed intruder had just been inside their home. The call runs approximately 7 minutes. For 7 minutes, Caleb Flynn describes the scene, describes Ashley, describes the supposed break-in, and maintains a presentation that sounds, on the surface, like a man whose world has just collapsed. Officers arrive shortly after 2:30 in the morning. Ashley Flynn is inside the home, deceased. Caleb Flynn is present. The 2 daughters are in their bedroom, unharmed and unaware of what has taken place down the hall. Officers secure the scene immediately. The Miami County Sheriff's Office is notified. Within hours, The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is brought in for forensic support. Outside on Cunningham Court, there is nothing. No fleeing suspect. No evidence of anyone running from the property. No disturbance anywhere on the street. Investigators turn their attention to the garage. There is a side door that appears to have been forced open. A freezer positioned near that entrance moved away from the door in a way that draws immediate attention. And a 9mm handgun registered to Caleb Flynn, which had been stored in his personal vehicle parked inside that same garage. Tipp City Police Chief Gregory Atkins speaks to the media. Based on the initial scene, he describes the incident as an apparent break-in, a targeted, violent event involving an unknown individual. But the words he chooses carry more weight than they appear to at first. He tells the public there is no ongoing threat to the community, that the incident appears to have been isolated in time. In law enforcement language, those words mean something specific. They mean the threat was not random. It was not external. It was contained. And the investigation to confirm exactly what
Funding started by Ashley's close friends is circulating online to support Ashley's children. As of right now, it's raised over $115,000. Its initial goal was $50K. Plus, over the weekend, Red Devil's Pizza and Deli in Tipp City held a benefit where lines went out the door. People from all over ordered food from the local restaurant. They raised over $4,000 that went to the family. And likewise, one local woman is making T-shirts, donating 20% of her sales to the GoFundMe. The shirts are red with the words "Live Like Ashley" printed across them. Tudu spoke with Sarah Kaler, the woman behind the shirts. She says despite the heartbreak, it's been incredible to see.
Before moving further into what investigators found, it is important to understand the two people at the center of this case. Ashley Flynn was 37 years old, born and raised in the Tipp City area. This was not just the town where she lived. It was the town where she grew up, built her relationships, and became the person everyone around her respected without reservation. She worked as a substitute teacher. She coached 7th grade volleyball. She volunteered at her church. She was a mother to 2 young daughters and was expecting her 3rd child at the time of her passing. Everyone who knew Ashley said the same things about her, consistently and without variation. She noticed people. She followed up. She showed up when it mattered. In every space she occupied, she was the same person. There was no gap between the Ashley her students knew and the Ashley her colleagues worked alongside, and the Ashley her church community sat beside every week. That consistency was not a performance. It was simply who she was. And she had absolutely no idea what was happening behind the scenes of her own marriage. Caleb Flynn was 39 years old. On paper and in person, he carried the kind of image that makes a community extend trust without asking questions. He was a worship leader at their local church. He stood on that stage every Sunday, leading music, praying publicly, engaging the congregation. He was visible, recognized, and deeply embedded in a community where character and reputation carry significant weight. Before his worship leader role, Caleb had served in a pastoral capacity. He was comfortable in front of people. He knew how to hold a room's attention and make the people in it feel something real. He had also auditioned for American Idol. That audition had been televised, and during it, Caleb looked directly into the camera and said he loved his wife more than anything, that she was very, very pretty, that he loved her. Those were his words, said publicly, said with confidence. For years, the people around him had every reason to believe them. Caleb and Ashley had met at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, a private Christian institution. They married, had 2 daughters, and settled in Tipp City, where both of them became active in their local church. From the outside, the Flynn household looked exactly like what it presented itself to be: a faith-driven family, two parents raising their daughters with intention, a couple that stood on the same stage and appeared, by every visible measure, to have built their life on the same foundation. That picture held for years. But underneath it, Caleb Flynn was involved in a relationship outside of his marriage. And the woman involved was not someone from a separate part of his life that Ashley never encountered. Her name was Aaliyah Botner. She was also a worship leader at the same church. She and Caleb stood on the same stage, led worship together, stood side by side in front of the same congregation that Ashley sat in every week, trusting her husband, trusting the woman beside him, trusting the community her family had chosen to be part of. Every Sunday, while that congregation gathered, while Ashley sat in those pews, Caleb Flynn and Aaliyah Botner were sustaining a deception that ran far deeper than anyone around them understood. Ashley had no idea. That is not speculation. That is what the investigation confirmed. When the sun came up over Tipp City on February 16th, the town woke up to news it could not make sense of. A woman found dead in her home on Cunningham Court. A break-in, authorities were saying. And the name that spread through the community within hours was one that everyone recognized: Ashley Flynn. The response was immediate. Tipp City did what close communities do when something unthinkable reaches one of their own. They showed up. They reached out. They organized. A GoFundMe campaign was launched within days to support the Flynn daughters and help cover the costs tied to the loss. People donated quickly and without hesitation. Thousands of dollars raised in a short period of time from neighbors, church members, former students, and people across the wider Dayton area who had heard what happened and wanted to respond. At the center of all of it was Caleb Flynn, the surviving spouse, the grieving father, the worship leader who had just lost his pregnant wife to what everyone believed was a senseless act of violence from an unknown source. The community stood behind him without question. Online, outside voices were raising questions. True crime communities were noting patterns, pointing out that in situations like this, the people closest to the person who was lost are always the first ones investigators look at carefully. Tipp City pushed back. Hard. Not Caleb Flynn. Not a pastor. Not a man who had given years of service to his church and his community. Not a grieving father trying to hold his family together. That defense was not built on evidence. It was built on years of reputation. On the image Caleb had invested significant time and effort into building. And it was effective because that image had never once given anyone a reason to look past it. Meanwhile, law enforcement was not slowing down. Drone units covered the surrounding area from above. Canine units moved through the neighboring streets and properties. Officers on foot conducted a thorough canvass of everything around Cunningham Court. They were looking for any physical evidence supporting the account Caleb had given. A trail, a footprint, any sign of an outside individual having entered or exited the area during the relevant time frame. They found nothing. Not a partial result. Not something inconclusive. Nothing. Cunningham Court is a cul-de-sac with limited access. One main way in and one main way out. A neighborhood where doorbell cameras and home security systems are common. If an intruder had moved in and out of that property at 2:30 in the morning, there would be a record somewhere. There was no record. Anywhere. The forensic picture developing inside the garage was raising equally serious questions. The side door that appeared forced did not carry evidence consistent with entry from the outside. The freezer that had been moved told a story that pointed not towards someone pushing through from the outside, but towards someone on the inside deliberately repositioning it to create that impression. And the firearm, Caleb Flynn's own 9mm handgun, stored in his vehicle in the garage, now part of an active homicide investigation. The account on the table required an intruder to have found that specific weapon inside that specific vehicle, used it inside the home, and exited the property without leaving a single traceable sign anywhere in the surrounding neighborhood. Investigators looked at that sequence from every possible angle. It did not hold. 3 days after Ashley Flynn was found deceased, the case moved in the only direction the evidence supported. On the evening of February 19, 2026, Caleb Flynn was taken into custody. There was no dramatic confrontation, no public spectacle. Law enforcement moved exactly the way they had worked every step of this investigation. Deliberately, thoroughly, without error. Caleb Flynn was booked into the Miami County Jail and charged with 5 counts across 3 categories of criminal conduct. Count 1. Murder, a felony of the first degree under Ohio law. Counts 2 and 3. Felonious assault, both second-degree felonies. Counts 4 and 5. Tampering with evidence, both third-degree felonies. 2 separate counts. 2 distinct, documented acts of deliberate interference with the physical evidence at the scene. That last detail matters. 2 separate acts of evidence tampering means investigators determined that Caleb Flynn made more than one conscious and deliberate decision to manipulate what law enforcement would find before he ever picked up the phone to call 911. That is not panic. That is not shock. That is calculation. Caleb Flynn was arraigned before Judge Samuel Huffman of the Miami County Court of Common Pleas. He appeared in jail clothing. Each charge was read into the record. And when the moment came for his plea, Caleb Flynn told the court he was not guilty across all 5 counts. Judge Huffman turned to the matter of bond. Bond was set at $2 million. A blanket figure applied across all 5 charges. But the financial conditions were not the only terms established. If Caleb Flynn were to post bond, he would be placed on pretrial electronic monitoring and house arrest. His movement would be tracked and restricted. And then the judge addressed the matter of the daughters directly. Caleb Flynn was ordered to have absolutely no contact with his children. Not direct contact. Not through a third party. Not through family members. Not through any form of communication whatsoever. When that condition was stated, Caleb Flynn responded from where he stood. His voice carried a noticeable unsteadiness. He told the judge he only wanted to take care of his daughters, that he was not a risk. He said it more than once. Judge Huffman did not change the order. The full weight of that exchange is not difficult to understand when you hold the complete picture. A man standing in a courtroom in jail clothing, charged with causing the death of his children's mother, asking a judge for access to those same children who had been asleep in that house the night it happened. The order stood. Outside the courtroom, both sides spoke publicly. Defense attorney L. Patrick Mulligan of Moore and Mulligan in Dayton issued a statement questioning the pace of the investigation. He said publicly that he found the speed of the arrest concerning and suggested the thoroughness of the investigation warranted scrutiny. Ashley Flynn's family responded directly and without hesitation. Through their representative, they stated clearly that the arrest had not been rushed, that it had been made carefully and with serious consideration of the evidence. They expressed full confidence in the work investigators had done and pushed back firmly against any public framing that treated established facts as open questions. The town of Tipp City, which had donated thousands of dollars to support this man, which had defended him publicly against outside speculation for 3 full days, learned that evening what the investigation had determined. The person they had been standing behind was the reason they were grieving. When a community loses someone the way Tipp City lost Ashley Flynn, the grief does not arrive cleanly. First comes the shock, then the mourning, and then, after the arrest, something harder to name. The specific pain that comes from realizing the person you trusted and defended was the source of everything you were mourning. That is where Tipp City found itself in the days and weeks that followed. A memorial service was held at the Christian Life Center in Dayton. People came from across the community and beyond its borders. Former students, colleagues, church members, neighbors, people who had known Ashley for decades, and people who had only crossed her path briefly. Attendees wore shirts bearing 3 words that had surfaced organically from the people who knew her best. Live like Ashley. Those words were not manufactured. They came from people who had watched how she moved through the world every day and wanted to put language to what made her different. She did not talk about caring for people. She simply did it. Consistently, quietly, without keeping score. The school district where Ashley had worked made counseling resources available for students. Staff were briefed on how to support young people processing the loss of someone they had known as a coach and a consistent adult presence in their school. Child development professionals, speaking in general terms about situations like this, noted something directly relevant here. Children navigating family-based tragedies are not only grieving the person they lost, they are also dealing with the collapse of the fundamental assumption that the adults in their world are trustworthy and safe. Rebuilding that sense of safety takes time, consistency, and the kind of patient presence that cannot be rushed. That applied with particular weight to Ashley Flynn's own daughters. 2 young girls who had been in that house, who had gone to sleep on the night of February 15th with both parents present, and woke up the following morning into a reality that had changed permanently and completely. Their mother was gone. Their father was in custody. Both parents removed from their daily lives in a single night. The community of Tipp City made a visible and collective decision to remain present for those girls, to make sure they grew up knowing that the people who had loved their mother were not going anywhere. Ashley Flynn's family continued to speak publicly through their representative. They maintained their confidence in the investigation and in the legal process now underway. They made clear that their focus was on ensuring Ashley's story was told accurately, that the proceedings moved forward completely, and that full accountability followed. The legal case against Caleb Flynn is active and ongoing. He remains in custody on a $2 million bond. His not guilty plea is entered. His defense team has signaled its intent to challenge the foundation of the charges. The prosecution is building its case around the forensic evidence from the scene, the digital records from Caleb Flynn's personal devices, and the documented timeline assembled by investigators. The court process will move through preliminary hearings, pretrial motions, evidence review, and if no resolution is reached beforehand, a full jury trial in which everything the investigation produced will be presented and decided in open court. That verdict is coming. This case leaves us with several things worth carrying beyond the immediate circumstances. It leaves us with the reality that the absence of a prior record does not mean the absence of risk. Caleb Flynn had no documented history of concerning behavior. He was trusted, respected, and embedded in a community that had no reason to look at him differently. That is precisely what made this case so difficult to see coming and so devastating when the truth arrived. It leaves us with the understanding that sustained deception of this nature is not accidental. It requires effort. It requires someone who is fully aware of the image they are projecting and fully committed to making sure that image never gets examined too closely by the people who believe in it most. And it leaves us with Ashley Flynn, 37 years old, a teacher, a coach, a volunteer, a mother of 2 daughters, expecting a third, a woman who was the same person in every room she entered, who gave without keeping track of it, and who trusted the people around her because she had been given every reason to. She deserved to see her children grow up. She deserved to meet the baby she was carrying. She deserved the full life she had been quietly and consistently building in the town where she was born. The legal proceedings in Miami County are the formal accountability for what was taken from her. This documentary is something else. It is the record, the account that says her name, tells her story fully, and refuses to let her be reduced to a detail in someone else's narrative. Ashley Flynn was not a detail. She was the whole story. If this case has stayed with you, if it has raised questions you are still thinking about, drop a comment below and tell us what it brought up for you. And if you believe that people like Ashley Flynn deserve to have their stories told with depth and accuracy and the full weight they deserve, subscribe to Behind Dark Crime right now. Because we are not finished with this case. We will continue to follow the legal proceedings as they develop and bring you every update as it happens. There are more stories like this one. More families still waiting for someone to cover what happened to their person with the same commitment to truth and accuracy. We tell those stories here. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And stay with us, because Ashley Flynn deserved better. And the least we can do is make sure her story reaches every person it possibly can.